Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to MASTERMND. Actually, that was the name change. This used to be called Curated Cloud. And so Wednesdays are still Curated Cloud Wednesdays. Wednesdays are days we talk about cloud computing and things related to cloud computing. And Mondays are our coding days. It's called the Crucible, where we learn how to code using a platform called exosystem.io. So that's pretty cool. So definitely follow, tune in on Mondays. If you're interested in learning how to code, tune in on Wednesdays if you want to dive a little deeper into some other things that aren't coding in the tech industry, like cloud computing and systems. As usual, I usually give people until around 7:35 to kind of get on and get ready, and then we'll start kind of going through some things. So let me actually get ready. So, yeah, so the agenda for tonight is going to be to, first we're going to download VirtualBox. We're going to install VirtualBox. I'll introduce you guys to virtualization if you are unfamiliar with virtualization. Next, we'll move on to picking our distro. Linux has many different distributions. I'll get into what a distro is a little bit later, but we'll pick one. We'll get it installed inside of VirtualBox. We'll get it set up, and we'll go through kind of configuring it. We'll do some customization, make it look cool. We are going to install the desktop version of whatever distribution we pull. There are server versions as well. Those are things that we'll move into probably two streams from now. We'll probably move into that, installing a server without a GUI as we get a little more comfortable with the command line. But we'll install this for now. This is something that can be installed on your own computer at home. You don't have to install it in a virtual machine. This also can be installed on an older computer. If you got something with older hardware, Linux is great to throw on there to kind of rejuvenate it. It's pretty efficient, a lot more efficient than Windows. So you can throw it on there. So at the end of this video, you should know how to do those things, or else you should have a good idea where to get started. So yeah, so as usual, few more minutes, and I'll dive right into it. But if you do want to follow along at the same time, I think you can just go to virtualbox.org. Yes, www.virtualbox.org, and go ahead and download this. If your internet's not that fast, it may take a bit to download, but go ahead and start the download, and we'll run through it in a few. Cool. All right, so first things first, when you get to the virtualbox.org website, VirtualBox is free. There are other virtualization softwares. If you're part of any of the Docker videos, VirtualBox is a type of operating system virtualization. This creates what's called a hypervisor on your computer. And what this allows you to do is to virtualize running another computer inside of your computer. So you can take an operating system. I could be using Windows. There are ways to get Mac OS to work, but it's super complicated. But what you can do is you can take you can download a computer image, an ISO file, and we're definitely going to go do that. But you can download it, you can install it, and your computer will be able to run this as if it was its own computer, kind of sectioned off from your current operating system. So when you click the download button, it takes you to the downloads page. You can go into here, pick the host of your choice. So I'm running Windows, so I would choose the Windows host. They have one for Mac. So if you're running Mac, obviously choose the OS X host option. And then we're going to be installing a Linux distribution. But if you are running Linux, you can also install VirtualBox on there. So you should click that. And if you're running Solaris, I doubt anybody on this on the stream will be running Solaris, but you can install it on Solaris as well. But I don't want you to be confused when you go download it and click on Linux distributions, since we will be installing one. That is not what you want. You want whichever one matches the operating system you're running. So once you click on it, you can see a download starts. I already have it, so I'm going to cancel this download. But a download will start. It's pretty easy to click through and install it. It's just like installing any other application. It'll take a few. It actually might, for like 2 seconds, it might cut your internet. I think Twitch buffers, so it shouldn't really cut you out or anything like that. But it will. It does some stuff in the background to kind of connect with your computer and mesh with your computer and make this hypervisor layer so that it can virtualize an operating system. And it does something else to connect to your NIC, to your network card in your computer as well. So it will cause a temporary, like a 2-second network outage. So cool. So once you go through that, get it installed, you can open it up and it'll look like this. There are other softwares for this that aren't free. So if you've ever heard of VMware, you can use VMware to do the same thing. Yeah, VMware is not free. I think VMware Player might be free, but VMware Workstation isn't, or you can get things for pretty cheap. VMware is a little more robust, but VirtualBox should be able to do all the things that you would want to do to do what we're going to do today. And like I said, it is free. It'll always be free, so it's good to go. It's very well supported, very well documented. So let's get into the Linux stuff. So now that we got this out of the way, let's look at what is Linux. So Linux is, let's go to linux.com. This seems like a good website to take a look at. But so yes, this Terrence, this app's, it can be the same as a workspace at AWS. They do have Windows workspaces, but yes, this is it's similar. Windows, the workspaces on AWS is a virtualization layer that allows you to run a desktop environment. So yes, it is the same thing. They're not using VirtualBox or VMware. They might be using VMware. They're probably using something like Zen, or there's a few other virtualization platforms. But yes, this will be very similar, like creating your own Amazon workspace locally on your computer. If you have access to Amazon, you can kind of skip the first part of this tutorial because you can just log in and spin up an environment for yourself. But what you won't get inside of that, there is the GUI. We're going to download a desktop version and a server version. The Amazon Workspace will give you a server version without a graphical user interface, so you'll just get access to the command line, and this will give you access to something that kind of looks like Windows or Mac or whatever you use, and we'll be able to customize that a little bit later. But yeah, so what is Linux? Linux is a Unix-like operating system, so that probably means nothing to you. Unix is another operating system that's not free for legal reasons. You have to call you're supposed to call Linux a Unix-like operating system, but it in the same way that Macintosh or Mac OS, and the same way that Windows is a system that your computer runs on. Linux is the same thing. This is the kind of the engine for your computer that makes the calls, that does the process, that helps do the processing, and things like that. That actually runs your applications. So when your computers that you buy, if you have a Dell, if you have a HP or anything like that, or even if you have a Mac, that's just hardware. The laptop itself or the box itself is just hardware. It's just computer parts. It's just RAM. It's just hard drives. It's just wires. It's just the motherboard. Until you install an operating system over top of that, onto that hardware, it doesn't really do anything. And so that's what these were created for. So Linux is an open source operating system. It's a free and open source operating system. There are companies who do sell a supported version of the operating system. So don't get confused if you do see something that asks for money. There's only, I think there's 2 or 3 of big name ones that'll do that. That's Red Hat and OpenSUSE, and I think there's 1 or 2 others. But there are tons of free versions. There are tons of free distributions that will go over. I don't want to go through all of these things right now. This is the beginning kind of the series. This will be a multi-part series. But this, like, all these will mean nothing to you until we get a little deeper. But except for maybe the graphical server. So, like I said, the one that we're going to install, the desktop version of the distro. It is going to be, it's going to have a GUI, a graphical user interface, for us to use that sits over top of the operating system. So it makes it more user-friendly, similar to how, when everything you're looking at now, similar to how Windows and Mac is. But why would you want to use Linux? There's a lot of people who are advocates of free and open source software. So, Linux has, they have a lot of alternative software. Well, first, they have a lot of the same software that you use on a daily basis to do your stuff in Windows and Mac. So it's going to have your things like Chrome and Firefox, and it's going to have things like VLC Media Player and all of your IDEs and text editors like Sublime and Visual Studio Code. And it's going to have like things like VirtualBox, and you can get Slack and Skype and all these things you can get inside of there. But it is going to be missing a lot of the proprietary software that you may have to buy, like Microsoft Office. Now it has alternatives to Microsoft Office that work really well, but Microsoft Office and it's a lot of games don't run natively on Linux. Video editing software struggles on Linux. So things like that. So there are some trade-offs, but if you want to, if you don't want to be locked into the Microsoft or Mac ecosystem, you can do this. It also gives you a platform to kind of learn and test on. It also, it frees you from mandatory updates and things like that. Linux is kind of open for you to do what you want with. You kind of have a lot more granularity and control over it. So that can be both good and bad if you don't know what you're doing. It can be problematic. It's come a long way in recent years. So it's pretty good out of the box. It's a lot better than it used to be, even just 5 or 6 years ago. Like today, it's absolutely a usable, 100% usable OS that you could use. But that's why you may want to use it as a desktop environment for you to use as your own for your own personal computing. But Linux runs much of the digital world that we're all accustomed to. It is what the software runs that most of us use. So Android is actually a Linux platform. So anyone with an Android phone has been using Linux, daily. Everything you're seeing here, most websites you go to are running on some type of Linux distribution. All the apps you're using are being served off of Linux. So it runs a very substantial part of the internet. And I'm pretty sure it's a vast majority of the internet. I think most things are being served off of some distribution of Linux, and then Windows has a big chunk of that as well. But I think the vast majority is Linux. So that's probably the biggest reason why it's good to learn. Whether you want to be a software developer, whether you want to be a DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, whether you want whatever you want to do in tech. Learning Linux is very valuable, and it's necessary for a lot of people. I've talked to plenty of people who are learning these things and don't want to get comfortable with the command line or don't really understand this stuff. It's super important to know, even if you're someone who's only using a Mac and you never have to log into any servers. Mac Mac is a Unix platform, and Linux is Unix-like. So a lot of whenever you go into that terminal, it's the file structure and everything is all based the same. The navigation, the way you manipulate things, is all the same. So the skills are absolutely immediately transferable. So actually, everything you see me do in this series, if you have a Mac, you'll be able to do. And if you have a Windows computer that is, I believe it has to be not the what's the second level, not Home Edition, but the Windows Pro edition, then you can install what's called the Windows subsystem for Linux, and I have that here. And so you can actually see if we go into the Windows Store and type in Linux, it'll give us, I don't know what that is. It'll give us this that says you can, Linux on Windows, absolutely. And so that's how you know Linux is a super important thing to know, because Windows actually went out of their way to make sure people could run Linux on top of it very easily. But again, everyone can't use this, so that's why we're not going to be using this. I think it's only for Windows Pro users, for now at least. So let's pick our Linux distribution. So a Linux distribution is, a version of the Linux kernel that's got specific software and packages bundled with it, out of the box to come to you. So anyone can create a Linux distribution. It's actually pretty easy to do with their own customizations, etc. But that just means because Linux is free and open source and anyone can access the source code, it's available to you, you can contribute to it, you get all kinds of different distributions. Thoughts on OpenSUSE? I like OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is pretty stable. We'll take a look at the OpenSUSE website shortly. I do like it. There are a lot more supported distributions than SUSE. SUSE is one of those. So OpenSUSE is the free version of SUSE or SUSE Linux, which I think is based out of England. I think they're overseas, but it's a pretty good company who has a lot of support for their distribution. But I'm gonna pull up the first one, which is Ubuntu, which is probably the most popular one for non-enterprise users. For desktop users, for sure. It is still big in the server space as well, in the enterprise space as well. And this is the one that we're going to download and use. But I'm just going to start the download for this, and then we'll take a look at some of the other ones. Should download pretty fast. It's about a gig inside. So it gives you some options here. So if you want to download it yourself, there's a big download button over here. We all know how to download stuff. Click the one you want. I would recommend doing the one that says LTS. LTS stands for long-term service, I believe, or long-term support, and what that just means is that the team at Canonical, there's a company called Canonical who keeps tabs on Ubuntu, even though it's free and open source. They kind of they're a company who kind of has a stake in it and wants to keep pushing it forward. So they kind of host things in regards to it, and keep it up to date and help the development of it, and participate in that. So we'll download the long-term support one. So that just means you'll get support for the longest amount of time. Long-term support gets support for 4 years, I believe, whereas non-long-term support gets support for 2 years. I think it's just 2 years. So we'll click that one to download. It'll ask you, this is free and open source. Appreciate the follow. Appreciate the follow, but you don't have to donate to them to do anything. They just like I said, I believe this is a nonprofit. Canonical is a for-profit company, but I think the Ubuntu Foundation is a nonprofit, so you can donate if you want. But I'm not going to donate. I've donated to them before. But you should, if you do use free and open source software a lot, it is a good idea to donate so that people can continue to maintain it. But it's downloading right now. I'm not going to let that finish because that's going to take a while. I'm not sure why it's going to take that long, but I have an ISO locally that is Ubuntu based already, so I'll just use that. But we can also look at, since someone brought up OpenSUSE, let's go to the website for OpenSUSE. And so they tout themselves as the maker's choice for sysadmins, developers, and desktop users. This one is, I think, if you get the Tumbleweed release, you get, I think it's continuous updates, so you kind of get the newest software immediately, and things like that. And I think they have some other long-term support versions. But they all come with a different mindset. They all come with a different set of tooling, a different set of customizations to help whoever their target audience is. So because this one is for sysadmins and developers, it probably comes with a lot of packages and libraries and things that are available that are helpful to sysadmins and developers right out of the box. Whereas another distribution who's, one like Kali Linux, so look at Kali Linux. This one is for hackers. This one is for people who want to do penetration testing and things like that. So this one comes out of the box with a much different set of software, things that are for pen testing and things that are for security. This is the hackers distribution or the cybersecurity distribution. And so that'll come with a completely different set of packages than these other two will. Ubuntu comes with a lot of the standard packages for, normal, like the normal computer user who just wants to, type up some documents, wants to get on the internet, things like that. Ubuntu's also good for, it's got Steam support and some other stuff, so you want to play games. It's got a lot of the common, it probably has the most of the, like, common softwares and packages, bundled in with it. There's also Red Hat. Red Hat is a huge enterprise software company, and so they have their own distribution of Linux that companies pay for, that pay to use it. You have to pay for a subscription and a license for these. But there's an open source version of this called CentOS. So CentOS or CentOS, this is the open source version of Red Hat. So they run in parallel, and this is just the one that you need without support. They're almost identical. A lot of companies actually just use CentOS instead of paying for the Red Hat license because they are the same. But Red Hat also has a desktop environment that companies usually use. It's usually pretty boring because they want it to be safe and secure and reliable. So most I guess consumer users don't use Red Hat to be honest, because it's kind of boring. CentOS, and there's another open source version of Red Hat, which is called Fedora. Fedora is the one that people generally use when they want to use for desktops. So they have like a workstation version, and it's pretty powerful. And it's pretty good. This is actually a good option to download. I'd recommend either downloading Ubuntu or Fedora or Linux Mint, which is Linux Mint and Ubuntu are actually very similar. They're based off of a distribution called Debian. I know this can be overwhelming, but Debian's like the base version, and then there's a lot of distributions that kind of branch off of something. So there's basically like branches of Red Hat. Really, Red Hat's kind of the base, and so there's CentOS and Fedora and a few others, and Debian base, which is Ubuntu, and Linux Mint, and a few others. And then there's some other ones, but Linux Mint is a good one as well. Their site's ugly, but Linux Mint works really well. If you are a Windows user, Linux Mint might be the easiest move because of their desktop environment choice. It's kind of Windows-like, and that works pretty well. And then if you really want to dive in heavy, you can use Arch Linux. So Arch Linux is rather intense. Arch Linux, you kind of have to, it comes basically with everything you need, like only the things you need. It's pretty bare bones, only things you need to get started. And by get started, I mean have it boot to a black screen with a command prompt for you, and you've got to manually install all the packages and things that you want. So it does not come with a graphical user interface out of the box. You must choose these things, but Arch is amazing. Arch is really cool and really efficient because it doesn't come prepackaged with any crap. You can get everything that you want, and only the things that you want, which is pretty nice. But there are things that there are now Arch installers where you can get all that stuff. So Antergos is one that will install Arch Linux for you with all the cool stuff that these other distributions have. But yeah, so we're going to be installing basically Ubuntu, but that's kind of rethemed. What we're going to be installing is something called Pop OS. But I still, for everyone else, I'd recommend installing Ubuntu. You can install Pop OS. This is from a company called System 76, who is a Linux laptop maker. They make some cool laptops. That, you know, they're a custom Linux laptop maker, but they've created this operating system to better serve their clients and to run on their laptops. This is basically an Ubuntu clone that's just reskinned and has a few extra things that make it easier for them to do support on your computer. But it is a pretty cool OS, and you can install it on any computer that you like. So, yeah, so once you get your VirtualBox installed, you'll see a bunch of stuff here. I already have an Ubuntu installed, but I'm going to install another one from scratch. So you just click new here. It's going to bring up this box. I don't think I can make this any bigger. Maybe I need to change the resolution on this display, or just change the scaling. Things are larger, and I think that's better. All right, so yeah, so I've got this developer box already set up, but I'm going to set up a new one. So go to new. It's going to ask you the name you want to call it and the operating system of your choice. So I'm going to call this Stream VM, and then I'm going to select the distribution that I chose. So it's going to set it up based on what you put here. And so I'm going to put Linux here because I want to set up a Linux machine, and then I'm going to tell it, it's got a bunch of distributions in here. If you don't know which one it is, pick probably the latest Linux one, but I'm going to be installing Ubuntu, or Ubuntu based distribution, a 64-bit one. So, and then you can pick your machine folder. So this is just where it's going to save all the files and things. I have, let's see, I've got something here. I'll just save it on this disk, one of my normal hard drives, and then I'll click next. So this is going to give you, well, you have a lot of options here. So my computer actually has 32 gigs of RAM. Your computer's probably not going to have this much, but what you can do is select the amount that you want to allocate to this computer. Basically, imagine you're taking your computer and you're slicing off a piece of it for another computer. So we're going to allocate a certain amount for this. So by default, this is 1 gigabyte of RAM, so 1024 megabytes. I'm going to go ahead and give this, because I have a lot to spare, I'm going to give it 4 gigabytes of RAM. Most modern computers come with, I think, base 8. Some of your computers might have 16. But yeah, I would try to give it 2 gigs if you can, at least 2 gigs, which is 2048. But I'm going to give mine 4 just to make sure everything goes quick. So we'll click next. And then you want to create a virtual hard disk. So again, this is it. Everything about this computer is virtual, but it's going to be sharing the same resources as your current computer. And so you have a few options to choose from here. We're going to create a brand new virtual hard disk. That's going to be the default option, and we are going to click create. You have a bunch of options here on the type of hard drive it's going to set up. Leave it just at the VirtualBox disk image. The other two, like, all the types are fine. They all have their benefits, their pros and cons. You don't need to worry about that right now. The default option, it works fine. Click next. And then I would leave it at dynamically allocated in case you ever need to increase the space. There is a fixed size that's faster to use, and it tells you the pros and cons. But I think dynamically allocated is better for most people's usage. Cool. And then it gives you a chance to change the name here if you want to change the name. And then it tells you to select the size of the hard disk space. So your computer, if you want to check how much you have left on Windows at least, you can hop into the File Explorer and click this PC, and then it'll tell you how much you have left down here. And so I wouldn't allocate all that you have left, but give it enough space. A Linux distribution, I think you need around 3 gigs to install. So I'll give it at least 3 gigabytes. it defaults to 10. I usually give mine, mine is on one of my hard drives with tons of space. So I'm going to give it a lot. I'll give it a terabyte. Cool. Well, no, that might take a little while. I'll just give it 50 gigs for now. And then you go ahead and create it. So what that does is that carves out a section of your hard drive for this box that we're going to be installing this on. So it kicks you back to the screen, and then we're good to go. So what I did is earlier, I showed you where to download a distribution from. I should have a few in here. Yeah, I've got an Ubuntu image here that I already downloaded. So what I'll do is you click start on your new VM, and it gives you some stuff here. I'm actually going to do one more step before we do that. I'm going to go to settings for this. My computer is pretty beefy, but even if yours isn't, I'd recommend giving it a little more processing power. So I'd probably take it up from 1 to 2. So what this shows you is your CPU core count. And if your computer has hyper-threading, it'll actually show you the amount of threads. So my computer is an 8-core CPU with 16 threads. So it shows that I have 16 CPUs. Which I don't. I only have 8 cores, but I'm gonna give it 4 cores. I would just bump it up to 2, like whatever computer you're using. I just bump it up to 2. Just gonna do this so it's a little bit faster, and then I'm gonna click start. And so what this is going to do is, this is like if you were to build your own computer and then press the power button for the first time. Nothing's really going to happen because there's no operating system on it. And because of this, VirtualBox is smart enough to say, hey, we know this is your first time starting it up. Do you want to like basically simulate inserting a disk? And that is exactly what we want to do. So it's empty now. You click the button here, and I have Ubuntu here. So just go to the file that you downloaded, which is going to be an ISO file. And I'm going to click open, and it's going to fill in here, let you know that you've selected that file, and then we can just click start. And what this will do is this will spin up our computer, and let's make this larger. It'll run through some stuff here. And you can see it's already starting to spin up our ISO here. This is actually very similar to the process if you're going to install it on your computer. You can do something called dual booting if you want to run this directly on your computer, where you can switch between Windows and Linux. Like you get to choose which one during startup. And if you're running Mac, you can actually install Linux using their Boot Camp feature, which is supposed to be used to install Windows. But you can install Linux with that instead. So, what's happening here? So, right now you can see that the screen is really small. So what happens is by default, depending on some people's computers will work right out of the box, some people's won't. But what happens is, first you have 2 options here. You can install it, or you can try it out. So this is what's called a live ISO. So I could click try Ubuntu. Like if I had no idea what I wanted to do, if I wanted to try the distribution, I could just click try Ubuntu, and it would just boot into the operating system, and I could kind of click around and hop on the internet and things and see if I like the packages that are kind of installed by default. But I already know we want to install it, so you just click install. So this is very easy. Everyone usually, when they think about Linux, thinks about doing every single thing from the command line. And as you can see, they have graphical installers just like everything else. They make it easy to do these things. So we're going to go ahead and get this installed. It's going to ask you some questions. So if you can't see, because this is small, I can't really make this larger yet. I'll show you how to make it larger a little bit later. But it's saying, do I want to do a normal installation or a minimal installation? So normal installation gives us all the packages and the programs and things that a normal user would use. Something to play videos and games and office software and things like that. Or a minimal installation, which is just basic utilities and a web browser. So I'm going to leave it on normal. And then I'm going to click this box that says install third-party software for graphics, Wi-Fi, hardware, and additional media formats. So on Windows, if you've ever had to update drivers, that's kind of what this is. This is updating all the software and things that run all the peripherals on your computer and updating everything. So I'll let it go ahead and do that in the background while this installs. Click OK, and then it'll take us to the next section. The first one is erase disk and install Ubuntu. We do want to do that because this is the first time we're installing something. There's nothing on the disk, so we can choose that. But you have some other options. You can encrypt the drive for security reasons and password protect it, so that if something happens to your computer, it's encrypted and no one can get to your information. And we can use LVM to be able to more easily partition our drives. I think LVM stands for, oh yes, right, logical volume management. This is a way for you to be able to repartition easier and resize and take snapshots and things easier. We don't need that. Or you can do something else. So when I talked about dual booting before, if you wanted to split off part of your hard drive for half for Windows, half for Linux or something like that, or you wanted to install it on a different hard drive or something, you click something else. Don't worry about that right now. Especially if you're doing this through VirtualBox, this is your first time, just click the first option. That's erase disk and install Ubuntu, and click install. It's going to give you a little like summary of what it's going to do to your disk, and then click continue. And then it starts the install, and then it has you do some setup information. This is like your normal Windows or Mac first-time setup. It's going to say, where are you? I'm in the New York time zone. Then it's going to ask for your name. So my name's Aaron, and then it's going to fill in some stuff, the computer name. You can pick your own username. I'll leave it as Aaron. And then you can select a password, and just type that in, and it'll let you know if it's weak or strong. And you can choose login automatically or require password and log in. And you just click continue. Nice and easy. And then you get a cool screen for the install, let you know what it's doing. And gives you some tips and some tricks that you can kind of click through, and you can download. Says you can download Spotify and Slack and Skype. So Linux does have a lot of support because a lot of companies, basically all companies are using Linux in some form or fashion, and so they want to keep that going. They want to keep the support alive. They want to contribute to this free and open source software. So they also make packages to be used on Linux and on Linux. So give it some time. It doesn't take that long. If you want to see what's actually going on, you can kind of click this little arrow and it'll show you what's happening in the background. Most of it will be unreadable to you. But yeah, just go ahead and let that run. And while that's running, we can talk about, what can we talk about? Let's go back to the Linux distros that we were taking a look at. So, actually, if you are on, so you don't need to do this. If you are on a Mac, and also question, and you might have said this, but I left for a second. Why use Linux and what is Unix? So, yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but why would you want to use Linux? So, there's two real answers to that, and the first one will be, why would you want to use Linux as a desktop software, or as your desktop environment for your normal personal computing? That would be just because you're an advocate of free and open source software. If you like customization and you don't like, so Windows and Macintosh are actually really locked down. The experience that you get inside of Windows and Mac is the one that they have intended for you to have, and you can't really do much to get around that. Linux, you kind of have full control over the things that you're doing. It's super customizable, so you can kind of make some really cool desktops that kind of are tailored to exactly what you want to do. Three, for you might want to use it if you are if you have older hardware, and Windows is pretty heavy. Honestly, Linux is actually very light and efficient, and can run on just about anything. So if you have an older computer that you kind of want to make fast and you want to be able to use, that's another good reason. But and then if you just want to mess around, like, it's a little, like, I think you should, if you don't have a Mac, I think running Linux is great for development work, just because most tools and most softwares are built on Linux and to run on Linux, so it's easier to do that work inside of a Linux environment. So that's why you want to use it as a desktop environment. Actually, not many people actually use Linux as a desktop software or for their personal computing, but you would want to use Linux and you want to learn Linux because, like I said, everything runs on Linux. All the things that you're using, our interaction right now over Twitch, I can guarantee you is running over Linux. It's running on a Linux distribution. If you're a developer and you're writing code, like whenever you download these packages, Node and Ruby and all these things, these are all packages that were built in and for Linux and to run efficiently on Linux, and to be deployed to Linux servers. And they do work on other platforms. There are packages for all platforms, but the internet runs on Linux. And so no matter where you go in the Linux industry, in the tech industry, anything you're interested in, anything that you're doing is Linux adjacent, or you'll need to touch it. So it'll help for that, and it'll help even if you're using Mac, because Linux is a Unix-like operating system. Macintosh is built on Unix. It helps a lot with like being able to wrangle Mac. So whenever you go into that terminal in Mac, whenever you go to the terminal, you are in your Unix command line, and learning Linux will help with that. But for anyone who's attempting to get a job in the tech industry, Linux is it's essential, honestly, to have at least a decent idea of what it is and kind of how to use it. So it looks like it's just downloading my remaining packages. About 30 seconds left. But Unix was made a while, before Linux, I believe. And I don't know the history of Unix, but I think it was made by like Bell Atlantic or something, and it is not free. It is not a free operating system. So there's a bunch of distributions for Unix as well, I believe. There's BSD, and like I said, Mac OS is Unix based. Bell Systems, AT&T license Unix. It is also an operating system. Not many, very few people use it for desktop computing, like very few, but it is still used for servers and things like that. There's still it's still pretty heavily used, but not nearly as heavily used as Linux is. But I don't really know the history of Unix, but they're very similar. Their file structures and kind of how they work, the commands and things like that are very similar. So I've been able to hop right into Unix and do a lot with what I've been familiar with. Even though there are things that are different, it's familiar enough that you can kind of get in and do things with it. So almost done. So the reason why this box is so little is because out of the box, so Linux has to be made for the kernel has to be developed to work on a variety of types of hardware. You can throw this on any type of computer, so there has to be optimizations and things put into the kernel, which is kind of the brain and the engine of it. So Linux is really just a kernel. It's really that's all Linux actually is, and all the packages and all the softwares and things on top of it are made by other people and things like that. But because it can't be tailored to my system by default, it's kind of going to run in this state at first until we can get the things downloaded that we need to be able to run it at its native resolution, things like that. So installation is done. It lets me know it's complete, and that I can now restart to use this installation. So go ahead and click restart. I believe VirtualBox will take care of everything for you. Sometimes it gets stuck here on this please remove the installation medium, then reboot. Don't worry about that. You can just click, you can speed up this and click the X, power off the machine. And again, it's virtual, so you're simulating a power off, and you power off the machine. So cool. You go right back into it and start it back up. So click start. And now your Linux is actually installed inside this virtual machine. It's like we just installed Linux on our own computer. So let this spin up. You'll get a lot of prompts at the top that kind of just let you know how to use it, and that's your mouse. If you need to get your mouse out of here back to your regular computer, what you can do, or keyboard integrations and stuff. Read through it. A lot of it's not important. You'll be able to figure most of it out by default. But I would read the prompts. But you can X out, or you can tell it to never let you know what's going on again. I'm just gonna X out in case I forget something. And we're at a login screen. And this is it's a normal computer login screen. And click on your name, type in your password, and it'll log you in. So we're in. This is our desktop. Let's try to first change the. They give you a welcome here, like they give you some tips and tricks on what to do. I'll just click through all these. Done. Let's see if I can change the resolution. So I know that you can go into your displays and the settings and make this bigger. So I'm going to try this first. This may not work. And if it doesn't work, I'll show you how to fix that. Cool. Works out of the box, almost out of the box. It gets us most of the way there. That didn't work. Let's see. It thinks my mouse is lower than it is. Alright, this is what we're going to do first. It's acting weird. I'm going to close it. And so this virtual, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm going to start it back up. And I actually think this actually messed up because of this. It messed up because of my scaling on my own computer. So I'm going to put the scaling back to 100%. And so everything's going to be too small for you for a second. But I will fix that for you so you can see. And so you will run into some oddities like this. That's what people do install Linux directly on their computer. Because virtualizing it, you do run into some oddities. But that's what we're going to go in here and go through here. And that's what this series is for, so we can see how to solve some of these things and how to use it virtually. Logged in. It's really, really small. So displays. It's like it tried, but it couldn't. Let's go to 19. All right, so that's better. That's better, but that's not all that we want. Let's apply. All right, so it seems like the highest one is the one that's giving me problems, but cool. So, cool. We have it big enough to work with. You can't really see yet. We're going to make this better. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do, it has, because of this, VirtualBox provides these tools to make your stuff work with VirtualBox. So what you do is you go to devices over here and you click on insert guest edition CD image. And so that's going to it's like sticking a CD into the drive. And so because I did that, it asked me if I want to run it. Go ahead and click that run. I might have to redo it again. I think that top resolution is messing with the box. So let's go ahead and power this off again. Let's open VirtualBox back up. Why is this even smaller? All right, back in. Let's let this spin up again. I just won't select the largest option. But like I said, once you insert that the guest edition CD image, you can run it, and it will basically allow give Linux the things that you need for it to interact with VirtualBox properly, so that you can get proper resolutions and be able to interact with the hardware on your computer and things like that. And so this is better. You can see how all I did was reboot it a few times, and it kind of gets better every time. We're almost there. So I'm going to double click this. I'm going to run this software. So it'll go through and it'll install. And you can see how this is, much like a normal computer. Over on the left, you saw that there was Mac, but it went away for a second. I'll let that finish up. Yeah, the view scale factor, at least on this computer, this Ryzen computer, it never works until I insert guest images. Every computer is different, but that is true. If you go into view, there is a scale factor here, but the scale factor, actually I gotta go into settings for that. What actually do I? I can go scale mode, but there's a scale factor you can set somewhere. But the problem with that is if you're all that does is like take everything that's there and like blow it up. And I don't want to blow it up. I want to get it to be the native resolution of my screen. And I wonder, did I break it again? Yeah, this doesn't like that I changed the scale factor of my Windows computer. But I'll allow it. It'll be fine. Getting VMs to look good. You can get lucky right out of the box. I sometimes I get lucky right out of the box with depending on the distro, or depending on the computer that I'm using. Generally I have issues with 1440p monitors or higher. This is a 1440p monitor. If I was using a 1080p monitor, usually that works much better. Or if I set my resolution to 1080, 1920 by 1080, that would work a little bit better. But I think this will be okay. I think this should be fine. And if I switch to full screen mode, that didn't work. It looks like that guest image may have broken what we've done, but that's fine. So if you've gone through that, like go through that process, my screen is also small screen. Yeah, it's super weird. We can definitely fix this, but I don't want to take too much time trying to fix that. I'm gonna open up this sandbox host that I do have, only because this is a very minimal installation of Linux, of Ubuntu as well. So hopefully this starts up fine. And so you can kind of see what a working copy looks like. But this won't be, this is not a customized version at all. I've only installed like two things, which is like Golang and VS Code. So we can use it to simulate a new install. And I'll work out instructions later. But yeah, there's tons of information out on VirtualBox and installing Linux. So if you are having issues that I'm having, half of your getting good with tech is like troubleshooting these things. So like going to Google, like, hey, when I'm installing Linux, the screen is too small. When I'm installing Linux, the screen goes black in VirtualBox. And Flow and Cora and things like that. And they'll answer questions like this, and you can kind of see answers that have happened, and you can respond to them. Or you can take people's answers and try to implement them and see if it works for you. So you can see this is a full running installation, and it's full screened. And so you can full screen it like I have it full screen now, and so you can essentially use this like it's your operating system. It's kind of overlaid on everything. Let's move this. I think I want this up here. And so this is very a very minimal installation here. And you can see I just have a few apps on the left. And so this is very Mac-like. This is, instead of having the bar down at the bottom, by default, it's got a bar over here. But you can see how this Linux is a nice desktop, just like anything else. People would never think about that. People would just think about this command line. And so you will, if this was a server edition or a server installation, you would just get a giant command line just like this. Yeah, something happened with the resolution. It is not like, it doesn't like the things that I'm doing here. But there we go. But it'll when you log into it, it'll just be this command prompt here. But we don't need to worry about that right now either. But so if this is our first time installing it, the first thing you want to do is hop into a terminal, and depending on your distribution, if you downloaded a distribution that is, whoops, I didn't mean to move that. If you downloaded a distribution that is Debian based, so that's why I picked Ubuntu. Ubuntu's Debian based. Just like in Mac, how you have the App Store, just like in Windows, how there's the Windows Store. It's not very good, but you have the Windows Store. Linux has these things called package managers that manage the software and the libraries and things that are available to your computer. So the first thing you want to do is run an update. So you get a new Windows computer or something. First thing it usually does is check for updates. You have to do that manually in Linux or set up. There's ways in the distribution to set that up, so you don't have to. But there's we want to get comfortable with the command line here, so we want to do an update. So an update by default is for Debian-based distributions. The package manager, I believe, is called Aptitude. But it's there's an alias for it, which is apt. And I don't think you need to type in apt-get anymore, but you type in apt update, I believe. And this will pull in all of the updates, all the possible updates and things to your packages. It'll update like the repository and everything. So when I run that, it fails because it says it gives me a permission denied. So first we want to make sure the command line is not scary to you. So don't be afraid of it. Everything you're doing, you're clicking on graphically, is kind of happening in this background. So don't be afraid of it. It's not anything fancy or anything special. This is not the Matrix. It is the same thing that you're doing over here, just in a box. You just need to know what the commands are. It takes time to learn those things, but they're not hard. But this gave me an error that says, could not open lock file. I know that you don't really need to worry about this. The key thing here is that it's got permission denied. All these are permission denied. Just like Windows and Mac, honestly, you got to have the security things, and you got to be for something like an update, you have to be like an authenticated super user. You got to be the computer's administrator. To do this, there's a simple command called sudo, and you just put that in front of any command that you need to run as the root user. So if you ever get a permission denied, and if you know what you're doing, if you know the command that you're supposed to be running, and it's not going to harm anything, and you know you're doing something meaningful, throw that sudo in front, and it'll ask you for your password, and it'll run. So this time it runs. So this is first thing you do. You hop in, you update. It kind of pulls and everything, tells you all the things that can be upgraded. This is just getting the information, updating its list. So it doesn't actually update any packages, but now I can run through and upgrade. So you have to do an update first. That pulls in all the available upgrades, and then you can run an upgrade. And this goes through and updates all the packages. So it kind of lets you know all the packages that are going to be upgraded. Generally, it's fine. I would worry about it more if you are doing this on a server. You may want to take a look at the packages that are being upgraded. But on your local distribution or something you're messing around with, go ahead and type in yes. Ask you if you want to continue. Go ahead and select yes and let that run. And that'll go through and install everything. You can kind of go leave. You can go do other things. You don't have to watch that finish. You can kind of let that go. But cool. So we've got this system by default. I think all Linux distros come with Firefox installed. So you won't have Chrome installed, but what you can do is, hop in, connect to the internet like normal. It's got all the things here for you to connect, and you can set up your networks and whatnot. You want to dance? Stop us. I don't know what that. Oh yeah, I installed Nightbot. I haven't really. I don't know. I haven't really used it, so maybe I need to fix that. Will it tell me how to do it? I don't know. Super weird. I wonder if it'll let me paste this. I can see your message. Let me see. Maybe it'll let me. There we go. So I pasted in the one that you pasted. Sorry about that. I'll fix Nightbot. I do want people to be able to paste in links for that. So thank you for that. I can't click on it in here, so in the virtual machine, because I don't have the bidirectional paste on. But you get Firefox, and then everyone likes Chrome, so you can install whatever one you want. And you have some options here. So first, actually, I talked about package managers. This does have a software store. So to make things easy, if you want to get some packages, you can kind of just click in here and search. I don't think I can get Chrome from here, but I think I can get some other things. I get Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome, same thing. But in here you can get things like maybe I can get Spotify. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can get Spotify. You get a lot of apps out of the box, from here. But You can also use that package manager from the command line to download all the things you want to download as well. Or you can use these, excuse me, sorry. You can use these things called .deb packages, .deb, which is for, short for Debian, to be able to install something. So I click download Chrome, and it'll ask me if, it knows I'm using Linux, and it says, do I want a deb or RPM? So for Red Hat, Red Hat based distribution, so Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, you can download this RPM instead because it uses that package manager. But for us, we're going to download deb, and I'll show you what that looks like. I thought Science and Tech is very no, I believe that. I just got big into Twitch. Like, I watch a lot of Twitch streamers now. It's kind of while I'm working, it's kind of it's kind of relaxing actually to leave Twitch on. And yeah, I can see how the way people spam chats. I bet it's great to kind of block all those things by default, for sure. But I'll see if I can set it up to not do that, because I was trying to set up some commands. I just learned about the commands thing, and so I think if you type in, I don't know, if you type in commands, it may give you a few, but I was setting them up this weekend, but I have a lot more. I only set up like one or two. So I'm trying to give you guys some tools to help you know what's going on when you kind of hop into a new stream. But you can download this file. It'll download a file like normal, and then you can just click on it and it'll install. So just like a .exe that you use in Windows, or just like a .dmg that you would use in Mac, you can do that. But so out of the box, this is, just like what you're used to. You can change the background. There's no special things you need to do. And you can use like a normal desktop. So, hopefully this now is not scary. Hopefully Linux already now is not super scary for you. That's cool. That's cool. I think I need to remove that GitHub exclamation point in front of the URL, but it works. So that's cool. It's good to see somebody use that. So now I can use this. I can customize it as I like. So I just want to show that you can do some cool things. I'm going to download a program called GNOME Tweak Tool. So the what's this thing called? The not display manager. The desktop environment that I'm using is called GNOME. Or GNOME. Different people argue over this all the time. I don't know which one it is. I think it's GNOME because that's how you say GNOME, but I think it's GNOME. And it is an open source desktop environment. And so it does a lot of cool things. So, I can do all this cool window spread, and I have virtual desktops, that I can go up and down. And things like that. So that gives me all that stuff out of the box. But there's more. There's one called KDE, which a lot of people use, and so that'll come inside of. You can get Ubuntu versions with KDE if you want, but I think also it comes with Fedora, I believe. Well, I think Fedora is GNOME as well. GNOME used to be super huge. People don't really like the new one, but I like it. There's KDE. There's FCE, I think, and there's a bunch of them. I think Linux Mint uses something called Cinnamon. There's a bunch for you to use. You can install any of these on any distribution, but it's going to come with one out of the box, and so this one comes with GNOME. But GNOME has a cool thing called GNOME Tweak Tool. So I'm going to use that package manager called apt, and I'm going to install GNOME Tweak Tool. So the packages, you kind of just have to Google around for. You can search your repos for them, but that's hard to do. If you're looking for things, search around the internet for them, and you'll find them eventually, and it'll tell you how to install it. But I've downloaded that, and I'm going to open it. So this is a cool tool that allows you to kind of set up GNOME how you want. So GNOME has these things called extensions. So if I go to extensions.gnome.org, it feels right. Yeah, no, LXDE is pretty cool. Yeah, and Cinnamon, I like Cinnamon too as well. It's yeah. If you're coming from Windows, and you don't like Mac, yeah, it's those are perfect for you. Cinnamon's very Windows like. Um, yeah, I don't know. I did not like I didn't like GNOME when they first switched to this style from 2 to 3, but it's a little more mature, and like I do like the ways that you can customize it. I actually end up using an extension here called GNOME to Panel that kind of makes it more Windows like. And I'll show you that in a second. So let's see here, control. So first, user themes. I'm going to enable this theme that allows us um, to install our own custom themes. We're not gonna do a ton of stuff here, but we're just gonna we're gonna make it a little cool. So let me extensions. What happened? Integration message. Okay, so first you gotta allow this thing to. You actually control these extensions from the browser, which is interesting. So actually, I think I could do it in here too. And just go to extensions.gnome.org. Troubleshoot. Man, my computer does not like this this resolution. Usually this works in Firefox. Okay, so it gives you some Linux commands here to try. Oh, this is how you do it with Chrome, so that's good. But you can see how this is just using the same package manager to install different packages that we have available to us. But yeah, this is exactly what Linux is. It's all about figuring out what you want. Yeah, and like you can make it look however you want. That's a lot of the fun of it. I as someone who loves Linux, Linux is not. You'll hear some people who are very hardcore about Linux. It is not. It's not for the faint of heart, even in its best forms. I still run into a lot of weird bugs and things, as issues with Wi-Fi and things like that, that I'm comfortable solving. And I actually think it is fun to solve. It's taught me a lot about Linux. It's taught me a lot about computers. It's helped me immensely in my jobs, for sure. But this is the fun you get out of it. You can make it look however you want. But there's trade-offs with that. You do need to know a little more. You need to know what you're doing, or at least be comfortable starting to branch out and find information on your own, and trying things. You will if you try to customize it, you will break it. It's kind of like modding a car. Like once you start to mod it, like you make it better for you, but you will have to go through some hell trying to solve issues and things like that. So hopefully this worked for Chrome. So let's see. Let's close Chrome and reopen Chrome and see if this worked. Nope. What about? What did it give me? It's already installed. Very interesting. Well, this is the best part. This is the part I want to do the most. All the things Windows does for you in the background you need and Linux didn't do by default. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's that, man, you can have tons of issues. That is why I do actually prefer installing I like the Linux I use a Linux laptop that was made from a Linux provider. I do like that because there are a lot less issues when you install directly on hardware once you get it set up. There are some like a VM just kind of complicates things, but it is good for testing, good for fun, good for stuff like that. I do like to dual boot as well, but you can mess up your computer pretty bad setting up dual boot. So don't do that until you are comfortable losing what you have. But all right, so this is not going to let us do what we want to do with the GNOME extensions. Not a big deal. wait, now does it work now? Now it works. Just like that, it works. Cool. So install extensions, install. So all you got to do is just enable it, and it works. But we're gonna do something. We're gonna change the background back. I don't really like this background. Change it back to the default background because it's kind of cool. And then we're gonna install something called. You can look through here and see what you like. There's dash to dock, so you can turn your dash into a dock. But we're gonna do something called dash to panel. And so because I do like a little more of a Windows vibe, it's basically going to set it up so that it's very Windows-like. And I can just click this button, click install, and it went off. Oh, that's why. It went off the screen because my display is actually maybe not. Let me see. Yeah, I think my display is bigger than what my screen actually is. Yep, that is why. That's why we're seeing all the drama. There we go. All right, so that makes sense. So now you can see how down here it created a panel that's much more similar to Windows. Windows, I think you call it like a super panel or whatever. And so this is very Windows-like. And so that's more comfortable for me. And then you can customize it using that tweak tool that I was talking about. And I can move it to the left. I can move it up to the top. Dash to panel. I'll put it at the top. So now I got it at the top. Because this is how my Windows environment is. So I'll show you. So now things are up at the top. This is exactly how my Windows environment is. You see how my Windows, I have everything up at the top. So you can make yourself feel right at home. I could change all of the decorations. I think there's some really cool themes and things that you can use. But you can see how easy it is to do that. Some things are a little bit harder. You can change the icons, but you can really make it look really cool, which is part of the fun of it, I think. But I just want to show that something that's available to you. You know, if you want to start learning Linux, that's a fun way to start learning it. A lot of the commands and things that you'll need to use to make it look cool are directly applicable to the work that you would be doing and the ways that you would be needing to use Linux on your job, or any job that you get regarding Linux. Yeah, so we got the desktop set up. I'm actually using a cool terminal called Hyper, but it comes by default if you just type in terminal. It has its own terminal emulator. It looks like this in Ubuntu, and you can do everything that you need to do. Hyper is a really cool one because you can customize it pretty cool. You know, it's a JavaScript emulator, and I'll show you if I go to GitHub. I'll show you some of the cool customizations that I've done with this. I'm gonna pull down. Actually, let's look for Hyper on here, and I'm gonna clone this repo. I'll show you what happens when I clone stuff. Clone. If I clone this here, it didn't work. Well, let me see if I have it set up here. It did clone, but something cool was supposed to happen because I got some cool, useless customizations. Oh yeah, this Get Falcon 9 thing was supposed to download. A rocket was supposed to land whenever I pull something. Let me try one more time. Let me try something else. I don't know if it didn't like that. I'm going to close it. I'm going to reopen it. I'm going to download this. And let's check. Oh, this is a big one. All right, didn't work. It works on my Windows side of things, or it works on my Linux laptops. But you know, you can get cool things like a rocket lands, or if I push code, a rocket takes off. Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing a GitHub tutorial right now. I've done a Git tutorial. We'll definitely do another one. People have asked about that the most. I was very surprised at how much interest there was in Git and GitHub. Like people really were interested and were like mad that they missed it and that they took it down. I guess my videos, because I guess I'm an affiliate now, so now the videos stay up for 60 days, whereas they used to stay up for only 14. So the video went down pretty quickly. But we'll definitely be doing another one, and I'm trying to make that into a YouTube video so it sticks around for a while. But there's some cool customizations. You can get super crazy with it, and I think on the channel we'll get crazy with this over time and make things pretty cool. But the last thing I want to do is go through some simple command line tools, because this is what's applicable to your learning. This is what's applicable to, you know, getting jobs. And when people say learn Linux, it's not learning the desktop environment that we did here. That's part of the fun. But you want to learn this command line. You want to get comfortable here. For anyone, like I said, if you have a Mac, whatever, just hop into the terminal and everything you do there will be applicable. So let's just do some real simple command line navigation. So you want to be able to get around. So it's important to note that everything that's going on in this terminal is the same thing that's going on in this graphical user interface. So right now we are, we've got this prompt here. It lets us know our location here. This doesn't mean anything to you though, but this is just this is an alias or a shortcut for your home directory. Everyone has a home directory on a Linux computer. Every user has a home directory, and you can use this shortcut, which is a tilde, to get there faster and to reference it. But I'm just note that I'm in a folder right here. So if I open up files, you see it says I'm in my home directory here. That is the same thing. So look at everything that's listed here: desktop, documents, downloads. If I do a listing here, I'll do an LL. There's things here. No, I won't do an LL because it shows everything. Can I do ls-l long list? Cool. Now you can see, if I put this on let's put this on the left. If I put this on the left, ignore, let's do a clear. That's kind of overwhelming if this is your first time looking at this. You'll see that if I'm in my home directory, I have the exact same stuff in this GUI to the right that I have here. So desktop, documents, you know, all the same things. So now you should be starting to see how this is just a representation, or not a representation. This is the computer over here on the left, and everything on the right is a representation of what is actually on the computer on the left. And so then you can do some cool things like this. So let's say we want to, you know, I want to get into maybe I want to type something up. I want to get into my documents. So I just clicked into my documents on the computer, how you would normally do it. And you can do that here by doing the command cd, which is change directory. Whoops. And tell it what directory you want to go into. So I want to change directory into documents. And if I do another list, you can see here I have the same folder. So this moved me into this. That was a simulation of a click, basically. I'm not broadcasting, but I've used Twitch. Pass download lives before. Yeah, no, I that's perfect. I'm gonna save Twitch leash. I'll check that out. Someone showed me how to stream to both at the same time last time. But I'm gonna set that up later, but I would rather just download and put it and just throw them up there later. So I will check out Twitch Leacher right after this, to be honest. So I appreciate that. So that's how you change it to another directory. CD is pretty easy to remember. It's probably the command that you really want to know. Is CD to get around to where you want to go. And again, this ls command I typed was it's for list, and that'll show you what is in the current directory that you're into. So we changed into it. It lets us know where we are right here in our prompt, and then ls will list stuff out. You'll see me type in things after ls. So I typed in this L, which is a long listing, so it shows me more information. It shows me the permissions and the owners of the files. Don't worry about that. We will get into that. We'll get into permissions next week, but it shows me more information. You'll see me type in LL. LL is something called an alias. We'll also get into aliases next week. It's an alias for like a longer command. So like instead of having to type this in, I can just type in this and actually it's a longer command for this. So instead of typing this in, I can just type this in and get what I want. We'll talk about alias as well. So we did CD, and so I can, if I want to go back one, I can CD back out of the documents directory, and now I'm back into this. So that's very similar to just clicking back on home up here or clicking the back button. So CD, ls is very important. And then we can create a file. So to create an empty file, I can type the touch command, and I can do stream. I call it stream test .txt. So I can create an empty file called streamtest.txt and take a look on the right. Take a look at the file viewer on the right when I click enter here. You can see here it created that file immediately. It's empty. There's nothing in it, but that's how you create a file, and I can edit that file, which I'll do in a second. For anyone looking to learn more about Linux, Humble Bundle has a few days. Oh, that's excellent. Perfect timing. So anyone who doesn't know what Humble Bundle is, and since it won't let you paste the link, I will paste the link. Actually, let me. So the Humble store is like a charity-based store that used to do stuff with just games. It will give you a bunch of games for like a super low price, like a bundle of games every month. But they've added a lot. It got super popular. And now it gives you different types of bundles. So perfect, man, this is excellent. So there's these Linux books that you can get. So you can get all these. You pay $1 or more, you get all these books. You pay $8, you get all of these. And if you pay $15, you get all of these. So you get everything. You get everything from the level up below it. So if you pay for this, you get all of this. And if you pay for the $15 one, you get everything above it. And you know, a big piece of that money goes to charity. Windows probably has a touch command. I don't know what it is. It's probably something very similar. But let me get the link here because that is an excellent bundle. And I'm actually going to purchase that. I don't need it, but I'll purchase it to give to people, to give to somebody. So if you wanna get the information yourself, you guys hop in and check that out. To get some more Linux information. But cool. So we did CD, change directory, easy to remember. LS, which is for list. That's how you see what's going on and see what's in the current directory that you're in. But you can also do an LS on a different directory. So if I do LS on downloads, it'll show me what's in the downloads folder and not where I currently am. So you can tell it where you want to see the files at. And then we did touch to create a file here. So that's just like if I went right-clicked and clicked new file or something. Oh, okay. So let's say I right-click and click new folder, and I call this stream folder. You know, it created it here. I spelled stream wrong, but that's fine. And if I do an ls here, we should be able to see the stream folder that I named incorrectly. The next command we can do if we want to do that from the command line, we can do this mkdir, and that'll make a directory, and we'll call it. I'll spell it right this time, which will be stream folder, and then you should be able to see on the right when I do this, it threw in a new folder called stream folder. So I got them both, and then I can delete them both. So let's go back CD, change directory, ls for listing, see what's in the directory, touch, create an empty file, mkdir is to make a directory, and rmdir, so make directory and remove directory, and I can remove stream folder first, so that's gone, and let's remove stream folder second. Cool. So you can see how easy it is. So it you know, I can recall these commands because I've been doing this for a while. But you can see how once you know the commands, it's so easy to do these things and how quickly you can kind of move around. And it's actually faster. I actually do prefer to use Linux as a desktop environment because I am so proficient at the command line. The things that I need to do, I can do so much faster than the GUI. Like the GUI is actually pretty slow. Once you know what you're doing inside of here, you can do things a lot faster. I can move a lot of files around quickly and things like that. And you know, it's a lot easier to kind of manage with the things that are going on. So if you do the slider for the Humble Bundle, let me pull that back up. It allows you to like adjust like where the money goes. I might not be able to get into it. Choose where your money goes. There's these sliders to choose where, you know, the money you want it to go to. You can switch it to go to like most of your money to go to the charity or all of the money to go to charity. And so like it's pretty cool that you can choose, you know, how much the company gets and how much, you know, you want to tip Humble Bundle because, you know, they're allowing you to get this at a great price. So you can choose that. That's pretty cool. That's definitely something important that I usually do when I haven't bought anything over here in a while, so I forgot about this. But super important. You can choose where your money goes, and you still get the product. It doesn't affect whether or not you're going to get the product. So definitely go ahead and do that. But again, keep your eye on these bundles. They change. They change monthly, I believe. and I'll tell you how many days are left. But they have new ones all the time. So this one's a web development one. So you can you can learn how to do these things and get a lot of information for next to nothing really. It's cheap to learn nowadays, for sure, which is really good. So what do we do here? So I'm going to keep saying the commands as many times as possible so that it can kind of get into people's heads what they do. Again, CD, change directory, easy one. That's how we move to different locations on the file system. LS, list, see what's going on, see what files are in a directory of our choice. Or if you just do LS, it'll show you the files that are in the directory that you're currently in. We did touch to make an empty file. We did mkdir to make a directory, rmdir to remove a directory. How do you, let's say we have this file called stream test, and normally you would just, if you want to rename it, maybe I wanted to just be Aaron's file. We rename it like that. To rename from the command line, when you rename like that, what it's doing on the back end is there's no rename command. There's actually it's actually moving this file. So it's taking the file that is called stream test and moving it to Aaron's file.txt. So we can rename that again. We could do move and Aaron's file.txt, so that will specify that file, and then we'll give it a new name. So new file. Okay, so the humble books, they go every 14 days. So check back. I think that one said it would have 4 days left. So every 14 days, you get some new bundles in there. Definitely check those out. Like I said, they're super valuable. We'll call it new Aaron's file.txt. Hit enter, and you can see here how it changed. So it just moved it from the first name to the second name, and that's how you rename files. But that's also how you actually move files. So if I want to move this into my documents, I can move new Aaron's file into documents. And now it's gone from here. And if I click in documents, there we go. My file's here. So moving has two functions. It renames as well as moves. It's not, it makes sense. It makes sense when you think about it, that you're just you're moving this to this. So you don't really need a rename command. Yeah. So, yes, Linux is absolutely case sensitive in the command line. So, I can actually make a directory here. What that means is I can make a directory here. There's capital D documents, and I can indicate there are lowercase d documents. And this is very important to know. This is like, this will mess you up if you aren't used to this. But it'll allow me to make this directory. Let me clear this. Because they are different directories. They're completely different. And so I have a lowercase d documents. And that matters. And that can be confusing. You can have files and things that are named super close to each other, which can be annoying. So that is important. So I'm going to remove that so I don't confuse myself. But Linux is case sensitive. So that definitely remember that. So we did move. Let's do copy. So this is examples.desktop. I have no idea what that file is, but I'm gonna make a copy of it. So you can do two things. I can copy examples.desktop the same way we moved the last file. I can copy it to examples.desktop.copy, and so I'll just make a copy of it with a new file name. And if I do an ls-l, there we go. I have another example desktops.copy. Or, again, I can copy it, examples desktop I can copy it into my documents. And now in my documents, I have, it doesn't show you there, but if I cd, it's supposed to be a hidden file. I change it here, and I do an ls. You can see it copied in here, but it's still here. So, that's just the name of the word, copy. It's copy versus move. So move moves it from its current location, so it'll no longer be where it started from. And copy puts one in both locations. So I don't know what this file is, and I don't want to mess anything up. So I'm gonna remove it just in case there's some weird configuration there. So cool. We can get around in directories. We can list and see what files are there. We can make an empty file. We can make a directory. We can delete a directory. We can rename files, we can move files, and we can copy files. Other what are some other, I'm trying to think of what are some other basic like navigation things, because these are things you can use to kind of get started. If you want to edit the file, so this can be tough. So we made this, let's go into our documents, and normally on a computer you open up the file and you type things in it and you save it. And so that's how you'd open up a Microsoft Word or whatever your text editor is, and you do that and you save it. One I can show you here. There's a command called cat, which stands for concatenate. It's short for concatenate. And what this will do is it'll spit out the like what's inside of a file. It'll spit it out into the terminal. So if I do that, it spits out everything that I just typed in to that file. But what if I want to edit that file? What if you're on a server and you don't have this GUI and you want to edit that file? There are a few ways. So on a server, you'll probably need to learn something called VI, because most distros come with VI by default. But there's a huge learning curve with VI and Vim. If you've ever heard people talk about Vim, there's a huge learning curve with that. But we are going to go into it. But there might be one called Nano. So I think if you've been following this video or this Twitch stream, if you Nano, Nano is an easier text editor to use. But you have to type in the name Nano and then the name of the file you want to edit. So all Linux commands are going to, I thought this was, I wasn't in Vim, but naturally my muscle memory wanted to quit that way. But almost all Linux commands are going to be the name of the command and then some kind of input, or some types of flag. So you call the command, you call Nano. So think about that again, like Microsoft Word or something, and the name of the file you want to edit. And so when you get in here, I can see that this has my stuff in there. So I can type in, hello, my name is Aaron, and I can save that. So it tells you what's going on at the bottom. It tells you things you can do, things you can replace. It tells you little commands. This little caret thing is control, I believe. Yeah, it's control. So control G tells me to get help. So let's do control G, and it tells me, how to get help, and I can close that. I can use the commands here to get all the information I need. So you can do all these things from the command line. I am going to exit this now. So to save in here, you just exit. It asks you if you want to save. Hit Y to save it. It goes to the next command. The next screen that tells you to give it the name of the file. So it fills it in if you don't want to change it, but you can change the name of the file here if you'd like, and you can just hit enter. And if I cat this file again, it's got my changes in it. But most Linux distributions are not going to have, they're not going to have Nano. Well, not most Linux server distributions are not going to have Nano installed. You may be able to install it, but you may not be able to install it, and you may have to use something called VI. This is the bane of a lot of people's existence. If you Google this, people will complain about this, but this is one of the best text editors ever made. It's amazing. Well, Vim is. So there's VI and there's Vim. So Vim is VI improved. It's VI improved, I guess. Really weird. So if I click VI, I get into this. It actually opens up to Vim by default on my computer. So I can type in either one. But you get in here, it's just a text editor. But it's a modal. I think it's a modal text editor. So it has modes. So you gotta do different keys to get into different modes. And I could do like a 3-hour live stream on Vim and how to get good at it. But let's go ahead and try to Vim this file. So Vim, file.txt opens up. Things are in here. So I'm gonna start typing. So actually, I'm gonna type in another line that says, "Goodbye, my name is Aaron." I'm gonna try to go underneath. I can't go underneath, but if I start typing, it doesn't work, and I get some weird stuff. It moves the cursor up. Some other things start typing in. And that's because, again, this is a modal text editor, and I've got to tell it that I'm ready to type. So at the bottom, look at the bottom left. The key to begin typing text is actually the I key, and that's for insert, to go into insert mode. And when I hit I know I'm in insert mode, and now I can type in. I can type in things. So I can say, goodbye, I want to leave this file. And now what? So I've done that. You know, the nano was Control X to get out, but there's nothing here to tell me what to do. One of the biggest problems in the Linux community is, or like the people run into, is not knowing how to leave Vim. People get in here and don't know how to get out, and it's hard to get out. But because it's modal, the escape key is your friend. Hit escape, it takes you back to the default command mode, which you want to be in. So you saw a little higher up in the chat, Sir Walter Rich typed in :WQ. That is the command that you want to use. Now, I don't use that command, actually, but that's the command you want to use. So once you're back into this mode, you can hit a colon to give it a command. The W, when you type in W, that's the command to write. So that's the command to save. So if I hit :W, it says, you can see here, I've written this file. That saved the file for me. To quit, it's a Q. And so you can chain them together and do :WQ to get out. So that'll write and then quit. Just a W will write. Just a Q will quit. If you haven't saved it, it'll give you an error. And if you don't want to save it, if you made changes you don't want to save, you can give it an exclamation point. So you can see this is such a high learning curve to this, because you got to learn what the different commands are. But it's pretty cool because you can do things like, I can search by doing this, and I can search for name. And you can see how it highlights name and it tells me where it is. So there's a lot of cool things you can do to get around. I can delete this whole line by, typing D, and that deletes the whole line. And I can save that. So I save and quit by holding Shift and typing Z twice. Most people don't know about that. So Shift, ZZ, saves and quits. It saves me so much time. That's what I use. That's what I use to do that. It's available to you in Vim. But that's another way that you can edit some files. I think they're going to be changing directories that are within a directory, CD media user. Okay. You're getting into something deeper that I wanted to go into next week, but I actually think that is good to go since we're talking about switching into directories. Because of the way the Linux file system works. So actually another quick tip people don't know. If you just type in, no matter where you are on the computer, so I'm in documents. So I'm in home documents Crucible right now. I'm in this path. If I want to get back home, I can just type in CD and hit enter. It takes you back home. So if you're ever confused about where you are and you want to get back to a reference point, just type in CD. Takes you right back to home. Or you can also do CD this, but it's faster. Just type CD and enter. But Yes. How do I exit Vim viewed 1.8 million times on Stack Exchange? Yeah, it's Vim will make you feel stupid, but once you get the hang of it, it makes you great. But file pathing, the absolute file paths versus relative file paths. So let's do this. Let's say I want to access. I'm actually going to change into the documents folder. I'm going to change into this Crucible folder. So Crucible, again, anybody, Monday nights is when we do some coding. And that's where we go through the exercises on exorcism.io. So that's what that folder's for those test exercises. So cool. Currently, I am in the Documents Crucible folder. So from here, I can just type in Go to get into the Go folder. There's a Go folder inside of this Crucible folder, and you kind of see here there's this Go folder for Golang, and I can click on it to get in here, but here I can just type in CD Go, and it puts me into that folder. But if I am, if I'm not in the Crucible folder and I'm here, and I'm back in the Documents folder, obviously I can't type in CD Go because it doesn't work. I have to type in the full path to get there. Or not the full path, but I have to type in, I can do two different things. That Go folder, I can type in CD Crucible Go. I can add Go after it and type in the path to get there. And now I'm in the Go folder. Or I can actually get there from the very beginning of my file system. So I can actually type in CD, a shortcut for home. And your home's going to generally be home, your username. So that tilde is equal to home Aaron. Documents and Go. So this is the full Documents Crucible Go. and this will also take me to the same folder. This command and this command are actually the same for my location. So absolute file pathings start from the very beginning of your file path. So that's always going to be the home. Like it's always going to be home. So like you can always start from here, or from the root, which is slash. Like that's the very beginning of the file path. So if it is something that is in your home folder, you can start from home. Everything else you have to start from slash and give it the full path. So basically you're giving it the full MapQuest directions from a location. You know, this is the Google Maps directions starting from here, starting from my house. I want to get to my job, and we're going to go all the way there. Relative pathing is relative from where you are. So if I drive halfway to work, so if my house is at home and the location of my work is at go, if I start driving and I stop off at documents, maybe there's a Starbucks in the middle here, and I stop off at documents, when I pull up when I want to get to figure out how to get to work from here, I don't want the directions from home. I can use the directions all the way from home, but I can also just use the directions from Starbucks. So you can move, and you can move around based on your current location. And you know relative paths start with no slashes. So if you don't see a slash, if you see a slash in the front, if when you run CD, if you put slash, that will automatically it'll look for an absolute path. It'll start from the very beginning of the file directory. And if you see it without, it will not. So if you ever try to CD into something and it says you can't, because you thought you could CD into it from your location using a relative path, try just doing the full path from slash, which is very interesting. You can start to learn the file system by doing the PWD command. PWD stands for present working directory, and that gives you your current path. And so you can use that to reference and to see things, and to figure out where you are as you're doing things. And so, I would practice actually CDing in the different directories, and then if you get confused, just CD back to home and try to see if you can, do an LS, see what folders you have available to you. Usually there's some color coding. All of my folders are in blue. All of my files are in white, and all of my zip packages are in red, and all of my executables are in green. So there are different color codings that systems come with that you can set up pretty easily from a command line. A lot of them come out of the box with some differentiation on files and things. Usually also, like my folders here are bold, and my files are not bold here, and folders have a slash behind them, so you can see instantly which ones are files and folders, which is pretty cool. And it takes, my eyes are trained for this, and so it takes time to be able to see that very quickly, but it's something that's cool. But just practice changing into those directories and moving around and seeing what's inside, and then going back to where you were and doing PWD to find out where you are, and make a file and try to move that file around. This is like 30% of what you need to know with Linux is how to navigate it. Like, how do I use the command line like I would use my computer? How do I go around? And you can spin up. So like launching Visual Studio Code, if I want to launch a text editor from my computer, I just click on it. But I can also go into a folder. From here I can say, I'm in Documents, and I want to edit this file in Visual Studio Code. The command to launch code is VS Code is code, and tell it what file I want to edit, and it does the same thing. So start to learn what commands do what. Google them, like say, hey, how do I open up? Because I don't know how to open up Firefox from the command line. So let's Google that right now. Linux, Google, Linux, open Firefox from terminal. And this is how you get good. It's like, hey, I don't know how to run this from the command line. And look at that. You can just type Firefox. Super easy, not hard at all. I type in Firefox, and it opened up Firefox here. That's awesome. And that's how you get good. So you can see how that's like, It is faster. I could also do things like set up an alias for Firefox. So if I didn't want to type in Firefox every time, I could probably set up an alias for like FF, and it would launch it. Not probably. I could definitely do that. And I actually think I can do it right now. How does this work? Alias FF equals. Now I gotta Google how to set up an alias because I don't remember the syntax. I know how to do it. I don't remember the syntax. Linux setup alias. I don't want to save it. I just want to set up. Oh yeah, so alias name command. So I was setting up right. So alias being FF equals Firefox. So I hit enter there. Now if I hit FF, boom, launch Firefox for me. The same way before it said, FF was not found. Now it has a command. So you can see how you can once you know Linux, you can use it to optimize your workflow. You can use it to customize things very easily, and you can use it. If there are commands that you need to run every day, you don't even once you can kind of navigate and know things like aliases and how to set things up, or like how to when people give you commands to kind of know what you're doing. You don't need to know Linux well, especially if you're not like a Linux admin or like an infrastructure person. You can find the commands that you have to use every day, and you can set up aliases or quick scripts so that you can just run them very easily, and you don't really have to memorize them. But it is important to kind of understand what you're doing, at a high level, at a medium level, I would say. But yeah, that shows you how you can set up an alias. I would have to put this elsewhere if I wanted it to be permanent. This alias, because I ran it the way I ran it, actually if I open up a new tab, shouldn't be available to me. Yep, and so new tab, it's no longer available. You got to do something called adding that to your profile or your bash RC file. Don't worry about that. We'll get into that probably in the third stream about this. Yeah, so we've learned how to install Linux and learn how to do some mild customization. We can get pretty deep. We'll start doing deeper things with the customization, make it real cool, make it work for us. So we learned how to navigate, how to move forwards and backwards, how to change directories, how to list what's in a directory, learn how to make directories, remove directories, make empty files. We learned how to edit files, where our alias stores their list of shortcuts. So, that's a great question. Let's see. By default, they'll probably in a file called it's a hidden file. Your bash RC. What happened here? Oh, bash RC. It might be bash profile. So by default, the ones that come out of the box. So when you see me type in LL, that's actually this command here. This is how Ubuntu comes by default. All distros won't have the same aliases set up by default. This is where you need to put your alias to make it permanent. So all I would do is just type in alias FF equals Firefox, and that will make that permanent. And these are just some common things that Linux needs. I had to set some stuff up for Golang, but this is like all these do different things and come by default. I didn't edit it. This is the only thing that I edited here. But if you do want to see if any aliases are available, you can check here. And I think you can do. I think you just type in alias. Yep, you just type in alias and hit enter with nothing after it, and it'll show you everything you have available to you. But yeah, there are 2 streams from now. I will be going way deeper into your bash RC and what's going on in there. But I'd encourage anyone who's not strong in Linux to get Linux installed. If you're on Mac, you can just open up your terminal. If you're on Windows, you can if you have the Windows Pro version, you can download Windows Subsystem for Linux, or like hop on Amazon and either open up a workspace or a Cloud9 instance or something and try navigating. Try moving files, creating directories and things like that. Get good at that stuff first. Once you're good at the navigation, everything else becomes so much easier. Once you can kind of map that when I change a directory in here, that's the same thing as clicking on a folder here, and you can start to make that connection and shift your mind into thinking how to do things this way. It makes Linux so much easier. And again, this is very marketable. You will have to do some Linux stuff in tech jobs. You have to do commands. You have to do things inside of the terminal. to get things done. And it'll really empower you to really be great. Like you can automate tons of things. You can alias, and you can write functions that as kind of an alias. So you just type in a short thing and it'll run a whole snippet of code. We'll talk about symbolic links. We'll talk about a lot of that stuff, which is super duper important. But start with the basics. Let me see if there's a cheat sheet or something. Linux command line navigation. Cheat sheet. You can see I like Google. You Google exactly what you're looking for. People are always confused on what to Google for. Just Google for exactly what you want to hear, or what you're looking for. Following directory commands. We did rmdir. We did makedir and rmdir. If you just want to remove a file that's just rm, this is good. Actually, I like this. I'll send this. We did pwd. We did touch. We did cat. The same way cat spits out a file, you can do less, and less will show you the it'll show you the last 10 lines by default. Head will show you the top 10, the first 10, or you can pass in a number and it'll you can do head -20 and it'll show you the top 20 lines of a file. And in tail will do the same thing. It'll show you the back of a file, the end of a file. We'll get into all these other ones like process management. All that stuff is a little deeper. I'm going to paste this in, and I recommend taking a look at section 5 and practicing those commands. So let me Google this on this side. Linux. Sheet from Linux Academy. Cool. Copy. Paste this. That's a good idea. Yeah, put the cheat sheet as your wallpaper. That's really smart, actually. I like that. I might steal that. I might steal that for something like the Git cheat sheet, or the Markdown. I struggle remembering all the cool little Markdown things you can do, and I write a decent amount of Markdown as of recently. I may start doing that. That's a good idea. But yeah, check it out. Check out section. So section number 5, that's all the stuff that pertains to what we did today. And you can see there's a lot of sections, but you can also see how you may not remember all this stuff right now, but you can see how it's not hard. Typing in CD to change the directory makes sense. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just memorizing all these commands that you have available to you and what they do. But it's not difficult. So hopefully this made the command line a little less scary to you. Hopefully it made Linux a little less scary to you. But yeah, that's all I have for tonight. I will be back this Friday. I'm definitely probably a little bit late. I'm definitely going to be doing some game. I'm trying to do a tech talk while playing some games, like a wind down session. But I'll try to pick a topic and talk tech, answer questions. But I'll probably be playing some Apex Legends, just like an end of the week kind of cool down thing. I'll see how it goes. I'm not very good at video games, but I like to play them just to at the end of the week, just to relax. Give people another opportunity to interact, answer some questions. If anybody wants to play along with me, that would be cool too. But yeah, and then I'll be back on Monday with more of the Crucible. We'll do some more of the coding challenges, and then next Wednesday I'll be back with more in this Linux series. So thanks for sticking along. This was a good time stream. I think I might start doing 2-hour streams on Wednesdays, because this is usually a little more in depth than what I do on Mondays. We can usually get through those problems a little faster. So yeah, maybe 2 hours is a good thing to do on Wednesday. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see everyone later. Bye.